Okay, welcome to Spying on Friends. Again, I'm spying on Architect. And it looks like you took a break for 5 days. If you get like pissed off or whatever, it's good to take a small break and come back to it. And from what we can tell, he absolutely crushed. He's just crushing noobs. I kind of wish I took a break because I lost like 150 points. And so yeah, we'll see how Arc does it. So game review. Game review says 85% accuracy is actually very good for a 45 move game. Uh, Very impressive. He played like 1400 according to chess.com. Played really well. Queen's Gambit. Yeah, so this is good. I think he sees this because he normally plays like this knight out. I like this knight out first better because knight c3 ain't going anywhere. Like you could always play it later, and this kind of keeps an eye on like you kind of monitor a move like e5. So I think this knight out first is usually better. So this is like a Pierce or King's Indian sort of setup. I don't know the difference. It has something to do with like which pawns you have out or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't actually know chess. Yeah, so going for this kind of bishop trade idea, it's always good. You don't have to go for it immediately, but I think it's always good to do something like this. Um, Honestly, this capture versus this capture, it's up to whatever you want. Like I, depends on what kind of a game you want to play. So I'm totally okay with this kind of a capture. Here, yeah, this pawn is protected because you played c4 so early. And that's kind of interesting. So I think taking and pushing are both options. Taking is very dangerous because you open up all sorts of like weird, or I think allowing the capture is a little bit dangerous because you're allowing kind of crazy stuff. So I'm not really sure what the best way to play here is. So we'll see. Arc kind of ignores this, which is okay. Like if captures, you can trade things off. If push, I don't think that's really that big of a problem. You can move your knight somewhere. So it's a pretty nice play. I think this is a good play from black as well. So well, so far it's a pretty good game. I think this tension is scary. So computer doesn't like this move, but I like it. There's probably some sort of concrete reason why this is bad, but um, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's a fine way to play. So this pawn's not under attack. That's good. Uh, okay, interesting attack. It's interesting that computer thinks e1 is better because this is kind of like the more natural move. I know you're being blocked by pawns. Maybe something like c1 was better, but you could maybe like break with a move like this. I don't know. Like later down the line, maybe you could do that. But it's interesting that the computer thinks that this knight is really good, um, or this rook rather, is good on f1, because maybe eventually you can push f4 and then this rook will come into the game. It kind of like sees the minor pieces behind these, so that could be why the computer evaluates. This rook belongs in f1 and not e1. Yeah, I think this is fine. Yeah, you can like rotate your knight this way, and you've got some control. I think this knight cap or yeah, this bishop capture is a pretty big threat, and there's not that many good places to move it. I guess this is possible. This is okay, but like you're staying on this diagonal, which doesn't really attack anything, and you can't go anywhere on this diagonal. I think Arc has done a nice job creating this kind of barricade to shut down the light square bishop, because really early on he traded off the dark square bishops, and now he's like shutting this guy down. So that's a very cool play. Okay, I think that's good too. Um, so this doesn't sting quite as much, but I think it's still pretty decent. Uh, so computer doesn't like this idea. I think the idea is interesting. Uh, Trying to break this way, I think it's a very interesting idea. So here, you just move your queen. Yeah, Because the thing is that you kind of want your rook here to pressure this pawn. I kind of wonder if something like even this would be okay to like pressure the pawn, but probably not. The way Arc did it is, it's alright. It's pretty good. So I think the square you need to be careful of is, oh, you got a fork. But assuming you didn't have this fork, you just need to be careful of this square. And then even with the fork, you need to be careful of just bishop takes. I mean, you got the bishop here, but like, yeah, I guess it's fine because you have this bishop eyeing g4 through this pawn. So yeah, it's pretty good. You can take, and there's even. So I think knight captures might have been a better move here, because in this position, or rather after the pawn takes, there's a check and you can pick up this this knight. So, yeah, and Arc sees it. I find that Arc is pretty good. Like, as long as he's managing his time, he's pretty good with spotting tactics. So, yeah, I actually love this idea. It's, I know like computer says it's bad because there's no actual way forward, but just piling on. Also, you could pile on this way, and then move the queen to do something else. For example, move this kind of fancy looking moves, like if the rook is on g1, this kind of fancy looking queen move. You can't take because the rook would be pinning. I think another idea here would be to move this pawn to kind of like skewer the knight. But then you'd have to consider what happens after king h8 and then the rook comes in. So that's kind of like, let's see. Okay, so the king does get out of the pin right away. So, okay, you need to be a little bit careful. There's no discovery that actually makes sense. But you do have to be careful of this. Unless you no, you can't trade off like that. Not yet anyway. Yeah, I like that move. Black should not be taking this. Yeah, I'm liking these series of moves. I think this capture is a possibility. Not this. The knight capturing. Knight capture here. Yeah, it is a possibility. I think the nice thing would be to have the maybe have the bishop capture first, so that you can recapture with the knight and then plant it on this square, which looks pretty powerful. Okay, knight capture first. Yeah, computer says this is excellent. So what I was talking about is that if this capture were to occur, you'd end up with your knight on this square. So the question is, do you want your knight on the square or do you want a bishop on the square? And having the bishop on the square, like I do see the merits, you're kind of like looking this way. But having the knight here, there's a concrete reason for it. Like you're not tempoing the queen, but then you've got this kind of a follow-up. And that might force black to perform some trades. And you can, checkmate, that sort of thing. So I think I would have gone bishop first, but knight first is great too. Okay, that is extremely interesting. Because knight captures, pawn captures. Yeah, this is pretty interesting, but I don't think it works. Sacrifice material. Yeah, you can just block. Okay, the check is pretty interesting as well. The idea here is, like, look how many times you control this square. This is the only way to get out the check, I believe, and then check. Yeah, there's a checkmate getting sequence somewhere. Whoever you block with a rook. You could even capture with this if you want. Yeah, the check, it is something that you should be able to see, but it's also like, what happens after here? Everything is forcing, so if you do see this check, it is very good. And I think oftentimes, at least in my experience, this type of thing. The checkmate usually occurs with the queen on f6 and not in d4. Like let's say I'm gonna play a stupid move. Let's say this were to happen. Usually, like this check where everything is kind of smothered, it's usually via the queen on f6 on this square. So I'm gonna make it like here, and yeah, that's usually how I would do it. Let's see, how do you do it? Yeah, so this would have been checkmate. I like what Arc did. It's not as accurate. It's not as destructive. It's not as destructive, but it's still a very good move. I think the thing to be careful of now is rook takes, promote, and I think you still have some sort of checkmate like that. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, rook takes, rook takes, king over. This is excellent. This is amazing, because Arc realizes there's no actual threat on the king. The queen needs 2 turns to get to it, but like this is even covered. Like it's covered twice, so you can't really get to the king from anywhere. So moving the king over here is excellent. It keeps an eye on this pawn. There's no way to defend this pawn, which is the shining star of black's position. So Arc has played this very well. This is pretty okay. Actually, I don't know. Like, this is just desperation mode. At this point, black should just march all the pawns to make sure they don't have any pawn moves and play for stalemate. Okay, and now Arc sees the idea. I think because there was, so you know, chess is very mental. So in this position, like it's very stressful. Like there's so much going on. There's so much complexity. This is, this is attacking this, which is attacking this, and this is attacking this, and there's this, which attacks this. This is such a complicated position that you might not be able, like, in this whole mess, and especially like this. In this whole mess, you might not see a move like queen d4. If you fast forward to all the pieces fly off the board, and there's nothing, this queen has nothing. There's nothing this queen can do. And the rook, there's nothing the rook can do either. Like, there's nothing anything to do. There's not even any good pawn moves. Like, none of these pawn moves do anything. So, in the absence of any moves whatsoever from black, it's easier to spot a move like this, which wasn't... It was pretty difficult to spot in the other position. But in this position, with so little stress, I think, this is a much easier thing to spot. So I think it's an excellent job. At this point, you can just trade everything off. You can look for checkmate if you want, but trading everything off, if you trade everything off, these 4 pieces get off the board. You're playing rook and bishop versus nothing, and you have an extra pawn, which is going to promote very soon, and it's impossible to stop. So yeah, I love it. Queen would have been more forcing, because it's a check. Yeah, computer is just like, oh yeah, this is a plus 18 position. Oh, plus 18 position is terrible. You should just take the pawn, because mate in 3 is better than a plus 18 position. But I mean, like, come on. This is a guaranteed win. But anyway, yeah, if knight takes, the queen doesn't have to take. The queen can just, like, do some dumb shit. Even though the queen doesn't really have any sensible moves, they could, like, do some stupid stuff like that. And you have to, like, figure out, how do I win from this position? Like, this is easily winnable, but with queens off the board, like what I'm trying to say is that when the knight takes, the queen doesn't have to take back. The queen can just do really dumb things, do random checks. I know you have 5 minutes 30 seconds, which is great, but queen takes is more forcing because the queen actually does have to take in this position, right? So queen takes would have been kind of like, if you're going for this kind of lame-o, super duper winning endgame, I'm just going to promote my pawn, I'm going to go for the rook checkmate, that sort of thing, and you want to trade everything off, taking with the queen would have been better. But it's kind of preference thing. Still totally winning. Yeah, this is very very safe. Yeah, you could even do that. Yeah, I saw this move as well. At this point, there's nothing yet. Just take. Yeah, so excellent game. Even cut off the king here. So great game, Arc. I'm glad that 5-day rest did you good, because this game game was pretty good, very well played. According to the computer, not the most super duper accurate move, but I mean, I didn't see any egregiously terrible moves. I think it was a pretty well played game. So GG.